Hi friends, today let us discuss the explanation for test 1. We conducted test 1 on genetics. In this test, I have not given any choice. Similarly, in the sectional test, I am not going to give any choice. Only in the grand test there will be choice. Why? Because I don't want to take even a small chance also. I want to make you read all the topics. If there is choice, then some students may take it for granted. Okay, let us leave this topic for choice. But the questions are along the UPSC lines: 10 marks questions, 15 marks questions, 20 marks questions. Depending upon the chapter, sometimes there will be only 10 marks questions and 20 marks questions. Okay, whatever it may be. And before going into discussion, based on the evaluation of your answer sheets, I want to give once again some general suggestions in order to get good marks. The first suggestion is, please remember, the examiner is also a human being. The examiner is also a human being. Don't irritate the examiner by writing excessive things, that means by writing excessive answers, and by confusing the examiner, as well as by writing irrelevant things. Why? Because if I do not give marks to you in these tests, you may ask me, but can you ask the UPSC? It's not possible. That's why don't take that choice. This is the first session. Second session is, whenever you are writing answers to the questions, try to develop this habit. Put a subheading or heading. It's better to put a heading. Why? Because if there is no heading, then sometimes some students, they have the habit of writing the answers one after another without any gap. Then examiner has to search where the answer is starting for a particular question. And that too, for each and every question, it is better to have one heading. For short answer questions, directly the name of the short answer question can be used as heading. Consider genetic drift, heading genetic drift, or karyotyping, like this. For long answer questions also, it is better to put one heading. Consider one question: should cross cousin marriages be banned in India? In such circumstances, you have to put subheading like this: cross cousin marriages and analysis on its ban. Like this, if you put one heading, then examiner easily identifies the question and the answer. That means he identifies the question to which you have written answer. Then examiner feels comfortable. This is the another thing. And another suggestion is, whenever you are writing answers, it's better to give your answer in a proper structure. In every answer, there will be, depending upon the requirement, there will be certain components: definition, concept, explanation, significance, like that. Try to develop this habit using more subheadings, and under each and every subheading explaining different aspects in the form of points. Unless it is a theory, in the remaining cases it is better to use points. These are the general suggestions. Now let us go into details. In the test 1, I have given 7 short answer questions and 9 long answer questions. First, let us discuss short answer questions. First question is karyotyping. First question is karyotyping. First, put the subheading or heading you can put. Whenever you are writing answer to this question, please remember, for writing answers to the questions in the exam, first of all, you have to identify the nature of the question. Whether it is open-ended question or closed-ended question. Open-ended question means they won't specify anything. Just simply give the name. Most of the times, in the short answer questions, open-ended questions will be there. In the long answer questions, closed-ended questions will be there. See, karyotyping. They did not specify anything. Of course, it's me. I have not specified anything. Just I have given the name of karyotyping. Then you have to write something. But whenever you are writing answer, your answer must be comprehensive. For long answer question, there will be specificity. In the long answer question, they won't give directly the name karyotyping, like that they won't give. Explain the significance of karyotyping, or should cross cousin marriages be banned in India? Then in that question there is lot of specificity. They are asking specifically one question on the ban of cross cousin marriages. Then you have to give the relevant answer. Understood? Whenever the question is open-ended question, you can write anything, but your answer must be comprehensive. That means all the dimensions relating to that particular concept have to be covered briefly. Am I correct? This is a short answer question. Consider, I'll take one small example. Take any one movie. Let us take one recently released movie, Bahubali. If someone asks you to tell the story of Bahubali in 2 minutes, then you will explain only the important events. Am I correct or not? If someone asks you to explain the story of Bahubali in detail for about 1 hour, then you will explain each and every event. Am I correct or not? Same phenomenon, in the same way you have to write answer here. This is a 10 marks question. See, when 2 minutes time is given to explain the story of Bahubali, you are not going to explain only first half by saying that only it is for 2 minutes. It should not be like that. Here also, all the dimensions have to be covered. That's a comprehensive answer. Many students feel that this is a short answer question. That's why if you write 5 points or 10 points, that is sufficient. But it is not so. Comprehensive answer. All the dimensions of that particular concept have to be covered, but briefly. Okay, let us go into the subject. First one is karyotyping. Whenever this type of question is given, in our answer, first definition must be there. Definition must be there. Second one is process of karyotyping. Third one is significance. In your answer, these 3 subheadings must be there. Here, first one is definition. But I am not going to explain each and every definition. It is not possible for me. But wherever the students are facing confusion, there I am going to explain the definition. Karyotyping means what? Many students know about this. In karyotyping, we'll take the photographs of the chromosomes. Am I correct or not? Ultimately, we'll prepare ideograms. Ideograms are nothing but charts containing the photographs of the chromosomes. And we'll analyze the chromosomes to identify the structural and numerical operations. And in many textbooks, including Wikipedia, they mention it like this. It is the process of ordering and pairing the chromosomes in a sequence. We are not going to arrange the chromosomes directly. We are going to stain the chromosomes. We are going to take the photographs of those chromosomes and we are going to arrange the photographs in the sequence. Am I correct or not? That's why you have to write like this. It is the process by which the photographs of the chromosomes are taken. It is the process by which the photographs of the chromosomes are taken in order to determine the chromosome complement or the chromosomal complement of an individual. It is the process by which the photographs of the chromosomes are taken in order to determine the chromosomal complement of an individual. This is the proper definition. When some students they wrote like this. It is a process of ordering and pairing the chromosomes. We are going to pair and order the chromosomes, order the photographs of the chromosomes. That's why you have to write like this. Second one is process. I am not going to explain process in detail. In almost all the textbooks, the process is there. You have to take some actively dividing cells, or you can take some resting cells and you have to induce those cells into cell division. Later you have to stop the cell division in metaphase. And later staining procedure has to be carried out. See, whenever you are carrying out staining, it involves number of steps in a sequence. Let's say here you can use flow charts. Many rankers and many teachers, they used to advise that it is better to use flow charts. It doesn't mean that we have to use flow charts in all the questions. It should not be like that. Whenever there is a sequence of events, then definitely if you use flowcharts, then definitely will get very good marks. Okay. In the process, you have to explain what is the significance. Karyotyping is useful to diagnose numerical and structural aberrations. If you want to mention the names of some numerical and structural aberrations, you can mention. That's it. In your answer, definition must be there, process must be there, and significance. Okay, this is about karyotyping. If you want a detailed explanation, it may take 5 to 6 hours of time. It's not possible. Wherever the students are facing difficulty, there I am going to explain either the concept or the definition in detail. Okay. Most of the times, where the students have written very good answers, there I am not going to explain in detail. Please understand, because of time constraints, it's not possible. Now, the second question is genetic drift. Genetic drift. Please remember, examination is nothing but testing your knowledge. Examiners also know about the subject, that's why you need not explain each and every small point. They are learned people and you are also learned people. That's why you have to give specific answer. Don't try to explain. In the textbooks there will be a lot of explanation. We need not to give entire explanation. The essence has to be given. Okay. Now let us discuss the second question, that is genetic drift. Many students have written different varieties of definitions, but you have to write like this. In this question, first you have to write what is meant by genetic drift, that means a definition. After that, the causes and effects, causes, effects and significance. You can write in 150 words. It is for 150 words, 10 marks question only. That's why you need not explain in detail what is meant by genetic drift. You have to give just definition. The change in gene frequency purely by chance in small populations is called genetic drift. That's it. The change in gene frequency purely by chance in small populations is called genetic drift. Some people started writing the phenomenon of genetic drift was discovered by Sewall-Wright. It's also called Sewall-Wright effect. All those things are not necessary. In the textbooks, entire information will be there. Here, UPSC is testing your knowledge. That's why you have to write like this. That's why first you have to give the definition. Later, causes. There are 4 causes. Almost all the students have written what are those causes. Natural calamities, migration and practice of inbreeding, absence of progeny or production of inadequate number of progeny, and you have to explain with some examples. After that, effects, bottleneck effect and founder's effect. If you write those 2 effects briefly, that is sufficient. After that, significance. Significance, if you write 2 or 3 points, that is sufficient. What is the significance of genetic drift? It maintains some of the harmful genes also in the population, so that they may be useful in the future generation. That is the first thing. It can be called as pre-adaptation. Second one is, because of the genetic drift, certain combinations of genes will be found which are not allowed to be formed under normal circumstances. Those combinations may prove to be useful. For my regular students, I have given the example of Lagan story also. In small populations, handicapped person got the chance to participate in cricket. Because of his hand defect, he is able to bowl, spin very well. That is an advantage. Different combination. Under normal circumstances, we won't take any person with hand defect. Am I correct or not? That's why, because of genetic drift, there will be formation of certain gene combinations which are not allowed to be formed under normal circumstances. Those new combinations may prove to be useful. These two are the important advantages, and many other things are there. It is responsible for causing variations, it is responsible for speciation, like that there are number of things. The first two are the important utility of the genetic drift or significance of genetic drift. In your answer, these subheadings must be there. Now let us discuss the next question. Turner's syndrome. Turner's syndrome. Turner's syndrome. See, whenever we are writing about any chromosomal aberration, you have to write three things. First one is, what is it? What is it? Second one is mechanism. That means how the genetic defect is formed. Third one is clinical features or characteristics. It's better to use the term characteristics. If you write clinical features, then that will become medical science. Okay, forget about it. What is it? Then you have to write for Turner syndrome. What is Turner syndrome? In Turner syndrome, what is the genetic picture? 44 plus X0. Am I correct or not? Autosomes are normal in number. With respect to sex chromosomes, there will be only one X chromosome. Whenever there is no Y chromosome, automatically the concerned individual will become female. That's why in the examination you have to write like this. Turner syndrome is a sex chromosomal aberration. Turner syndrome is a sex chromosomal aberration which is characterized by the deficiency of one X chromosome in a female, because phenotypically they are females. That's why it is a sex chromosomal aberration in which there is deficiency of one X chromosome in a female. That should be the definition or meaning. After that, a mechanism. Here, many students, even my students also, even though I explain in class very clearly, many students are committing mistakes. See, whenever you are representing the mechanism of any chromosomal aberration, then you have to represent like this. First, for your easy understanding, I am telling, first parent germ cells will be there. They are called primordial germ cells. Primordial germ cells. These primordial germ cells in females are called oogonia. Oogonia is plural, oogonium is singular. Oogonium is singular, oogonia is plural. In males, it is called spermatogonium. Plural is spermatogonium. Now, whenever you are representing sex chromosomal aberrations, then you have to represent the chromosomal number like this: 44 plus XY, 44 plus XX. Okay. Then from these primordial germ cells, the sex cells will be formed. Here 22 plus X, 22 plus Y. Here 22 plus X, 22 plus X. So you have to represent gametogenesis. Entire process is gametogenesis. That's why you have to represent like this: gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is a general term. Formation of sex cells is called gametogenesis. In males it is called spermatogenesis, in females it is called oogenesis. But if you represent like this, gametogenesis, general term, that is sufficient. Many students, they have represented like this by drawing one line from here, gametogenesis, but it is not like this. Then these sex cells, I am taking one example. If these two cells fuse, then it results in the formation of zygote, 44 plus XX. Under normal circumstances, this is the situation. Or if this cell fuses with this, 44 plus XY. Here, the entire process is called fertilization. Whatever the genetic picture is there in the zygote, the same genetic picture will be there in all the body cells of our body, in all the body cells. Now, whenever you are representing the formation of one chromosomal defect, or whenever you are representing the mechanism, you have to represent the mechanism in at three levels. Spermatogonium, that means at the level of primordial germ cells, and formation of sex cells, and formation of zygote. You have to represent like this only. Many students, they are giving oversimplification, sometimes they are doing mistakes. Sometimes there can be minor changes. If there is formation of normal zygote, then one normal sperm, one normal ovum, then fusion, zygote. If there are defective divisions in zygote, then we have to represent. In Down syndrome that will happen, we'll discuss it later on. Understood? This is normal. Many students, they have represented like this: normal mechanism, abnormal mechanism. You need not to explain normal mechanism. UPSC is testing your knowledge. You have to explain it. The concern thinks that is sufficient. Understood? First, you have to represent the primordial germ cells. What are the primordial germ cells? Spermatogonium in males, oogonium in females. The process of formation of sex cells, that means sperms in males, is called spermatogenesis or generalized term gametogenesis. Then fusion of one sperm and one ovum to form the zygote is called fertilization. And I am going to explain any one chromosomal aberration for your understanding. Let us take Turner syndrome. The same procedure has to be followed to explain the chromosomal aberrations in all the cases. Let us take Turner syndrome. Then you have to represent like this: spermatogonium and oogonium. Develop this habit: spermatogonium and oogonium. Spermatogonium means 44 plus XY. Write them carefully. Sometimes some students in the examination hurry, they used to write Y also like this. It is appearing like that of X. That's why I avoid this type of mistakes. Then oogonium 44 plus XX. Please be careful. One student, he wrote in reverse direction: 44 plus XY, oogonium, 44 plus XS, spermatogonium. So write them carefully. Now, here you have to use scientific terminology. Some students, they mention it like this: non-separation of chromosomes. Don't use the general terminology. You have to use scientific terminology: non-disjunction of 6 chromosomes. Now, 22 plus XY, 22 plus 0, 22 plus X, 22 plus X. Let us assume there is non-disjunction during spermatogenesis. By chance, if this cell fuses with this, or if this cell fuses with this, then we will get 44 plus X0. Sometimes non-disjunction may happen here. Normal spermatogenesis may be there, then also the same situation may be formed. That's why whenever you are writing mechanism, you have to write like this: Turner syndrome is formed because of non-disjunction of chromosomes either during spermatogenesis or during oogenesis. After writing this statement, represent this mechanism. You need not to explain the mechanism in detail. Please remember this point. After that, you have to write the characteristics. Because of time constraints, I am not explaining each and every mechanism. Now let us, that you have to write first, whenever there is any 6 chromosome aberration, you have to write what is it, mechanism and characteristics. The next question is role of environment in the formation of races. Role of environment in the formation of races. See, Many students, they have given definition of race given by Dobzhansky. Dobzhansky has given a definition to the race based on the gene frequencies. But environment influences the formation of a set of physical characteristics. Am I correct or not? A set of physical characteristics. Environment is not going to favor only one character in a particular area. It is going to favor a set of characters. The ecological rules must operate in your mind. You have to give your answer with respect to three environments: tropical environment, moderate environment or Mediterranean environment, temperate environment, and polar environment. Now, you have to, in the tropical environment, the nature selects the people with the black color, generally, the people with elongated extremities, the people with less hair, the people with platyrind nose, like this. That means environment is favoring the people with a set of physical characteristics. Whenever there is a population with a set of similar physical characteristics, then that is called race. That's why for this question, your definition may be correct. Many students have given Dobzhansky's race definition, but here the relevant definition is general definition of race. Race is nothing but a group of population characterized by the presence of a set of similar physical characteristics. Now you are going to explain how the environment is responsible for selecting a set of similar physical characteristics in a particular environment. You have to explain with respect to temperate tropical environment, with respect to temperate environment, and with respect to polar environment. In this way you have to write. Even if you draw the table, that is also good. Understood? Many students, they have given Dobzhansky's definition. The definition is not wrong, but that is not relevant here. Okay, I hope you understood. Next one is hemoglobin as a genetic marker. Hemoglobin as a genetic marker. Here, many students, they have given the definition of genetic marker. Yes, that is correct. A genetic marker is nothing but a gene or a part of DNA which is used to establish the identity of an individual or a group of people. An individual or a group of people. After giving the definition of genetic marker, you have to write how hemoglobin acts as a genetic marker. Then you have to write age-based variations, sex-based variations, and population-based variations. Some students, they have written what are the characteristics of genetic markers. All those things are not necessary. What is genetic marker? Why hemoglobin is considered as genetic marker? Why? Because it is used to establish the identity of an individual or a group of people. Individual on the basis of age and on the basis of sex. Then you have to write age-based variations, sex-based variations, and population-based variations. Okay. The next question is factors influencing health and disease. Almost all the students have written very good answer to this question. I think one student, he might have been confused. He wrote about the dimensions of health and disease: physical dimension, mental dimension, social dimension. Factors means age, sex, environment. For my regular students, for their easy understanding, for remembering the factors so easily, I have taken the help of an application form. In application form, what will be there? Name, age, sex, address, like this. One student has written like this: address also as one of the factors. Instead of writing address, locality or environment. Okay, you have to write like this. Okay, age, sex, environment, education, socio-economic status, biological factors, political factors, religious factors. These are the factors which influence health and disease. Non-communicable diseases. Here, many students, they gave detailed explanation of some non-communicable diseases. What is diabetes? Diabetes is just one of the non-communicable diseases. But one student has written in detail what is diabetes, what are the characteristics, how to diagnose, what are the complications of diabetes. For my regular students, just for enhancing their knowledge, I gave in-depth knowledge about diabetes. Why? Because nowadays in every family we can come across one diabetic patient. That's why in order to make my classes so useful, on some occasions I explain in detail about diabetes. But the students started writing in detail about diabetes, but it should not be like this. For the question, on non-communicable disease, here also this is open-ended question or non-specific question. Here you have to write what is meant by non-communicable diseases. That means a definition. Almost all the students have written very good definition. The diseases which cannot be transmitted from one person to another person in our community. Second one is, what are the communicable diseases? Here you can write, that means what are the means, you can mention some of the, not what are the communicable, what are the non-communicable diseases. You can write some non-communicable diseases. In non-communicable diseases, well to mention diabetes, hypertension, cancer, obesity. After that you can mention nutritional deficiencies and others. And many students, they have written exclusively about these diseases, but this is open-ended question, non-specific question, all the dimensions have to be covered. That's why here you have to mention measures, preventive measures. In order to avoid the non-communicable diseases, you have to mention some preventive measures. In your answer, these three components must be there. Definition, what are the non-communicable diseases and what are the measures to be taken to avoid non-communicable diseases. And here, if there are some reports on non-communicable diseases in newspaper, you may come across India ranks 1 in the number of diabetic patients, or there are more number of deaths because of diabetes in this year. Like this, if there are some reports, then you can mention the magnitude of non-communicable diseases. That is evaluation. If you have very good understanding and very good memory with regard to magnitude of the problem, you can mention. Otherwise, not necessary. If these components are there, they are sufficient. These are the different short answer questions. Now let us discuss long answer questions. Now let us discuss long answer questions. First question is, explain the role of pedigree analysis in determining the nature of disease. Nature of disease means nature of the genetic disease. See, the question is, explain the role of pedigree analysis in determining the nature of the disease. Then, if you want to write, you can write a definition. What is meant by pedigree analysis? Some students, they have written in textbooks, detailed explanation will be there, but here we are testing your knowledge. So accordingly you have to write. I am asking, how will you establish the nature of the disease on the basis of pedigree analysis? First write what is meant by pedigree analysis. Many students, they have represented what is the meaning of so and so symbol. All those things are not necessary. You have to write like this. After giving the definition of pedigree analysis, you have to write like this. We are going to establish the nature of genetic disease on the basis of analysis of pedigree charts in the following way. Then you have to write. Many students, they have written like this, types of pedigree charts, autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, like that. We should not write like this. You have to write like this in the form of 4 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, first definition you have to write. After that, first paragraph. If you want to use number also you can use. Whenever we analyze a pedigree chart, if you identify the skipping of generations, if you identify the skipping of generations, and with equal incidence in males and females, then we can identify it as if there is skipping of generations, then that is recessive in nature. If there is equal incidence, that is autosomal in nature. Please remember these 2 points. If in case of autosomal disorders, there will be equal incidence in both males and females. That means there is no sex-based bias. And if it is sex chromosomal aberration, then there will be sex-based bias. Some students, they have given what are the different varieties of sex-based biases. You need not to explain. If you can remember and if you can write without mistakes, you can write. With respect to hemophilia, many students have written, but otherwise you can remember. Sex-based bias. And if any disease is dominant, then there will not be any skipping of generations. If it is recessive, then there will be skipping of generations. You have to remember these 4 points. Now you have to write, when we analyze any pedigree chart, if there is skipping of generations and equal incidence in both males and females, then we can say that it is autosomal recessive. There is skipping of generation, that means recessive. Equal incidence in males and females, autosomal. Similarly, you have to write, if there is skipping of generations and if there is sex-based bias. If there is skipping of generation means recessive. Sex-based bias means sex chromosomal. Sex chromosomal recessive disease. Like this, you have to write like this. If there is so and so characters. So if there is the presence of so and so, we can say that this is the nature of the genetic disease. After writing these 2 points, if you can explain with the help of one disease, then that will be excellent. Okay. Even if you do not explain with the help of example, that's not a significant drawback. Please remember. You have to write like this. Whenever we analyze pedigree analysis, then you have to write if there is skipping of generations, if there is equal incidence, you have to write these 2 points. Based on these 2 points, we are going to establish the nature of the genetic disease. Understood? Some students, they started writing relevance of pedigree analysis, significance of pedigree analysis. All those things are not necessary. Why? Because the question is very specific. Here, it's asked very specifically, how will you determine the nature of the genetic disease on the basis of pedigree analysis, or the role of pedigree analysis in the determination of the nature of the disease. And the question is so specific, write answer accordingly. Okay. Now let us discuss the next question. Explain Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Add a note on the factors influencing Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Here you have to write the definition of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Almost all the students have given very good answer. Then the mathematical representation, P plus Q is equal to 1, P square plus 2PQ plus Q square is equal to 1. Then you have to write what is meant by P, what is meant by Q, what is meant by P square, PQ and Q square. After that, you have to write like this. The Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is influenced by the following factors. What are those factors? In the definition itself, those factors are clearly mentioned. Okay. But only one student has given answer like this. I asked one question. What is that question? Define Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium and what are the factors influencing Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. But the student has written definition of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, significance of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, utility of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Like that, the student has written entire content that he knows or she knows. Okay, I think that student is a female student. Okay, whatever it may be. Everyone knows answer to this question, that's why I'm not explaining. Next question is, explain the mechanism and clinical features of Klinefelter syndrome. The question is very clear. What is the mechanism and clinical features or characteristics? Here there are different mechanisms. This is a long answer question for 20 marks. That's why it is better to represent the formation of Klinefelter syndrome 1, Klinefelter syndrome 2, Klinefelter syndrome 3. Actually, Klinefelter syndrome 3 you need not to mention. Why? Because that is post-graduation level knowledge. But UPSC tests your knowledge up to the level of graduation. That's why if you write the mechanism of formation of Klinefelter syndrome 1 and 2, that is sufficient. Then clinical features you have to write. Okay. Some students, they have to write management of Klinefelter syndrome. All those things, they are not necessary. Question is very specific. In this case, if you want to write, you can write what is meant by Klinefelter syndrome and mechanism and clinical features. That is sufficient. The next question is, genetic load decreases the fitness of a population, but it is a paradox. Discuss. Many students, they have written the content, the entire content, whatever they know. But the question is very clear. Genetic load decreases the fitness of the population, but it is a paradox. Discuss. It appears to be so, but not so. What is here? You have to write what is meant by genetic load. Why? Because the definition of genetic load is going to substantiate the first statement. Genetic load decreases the fitness of a population. In this question, two statements are there. Genetic load decreases the fitness of the population, but it is a paradox. It appears to be so, but not so. That's why you have to explain the first statement. Later, you have to disapprove that first statement. Then you have to give what is the meaning of definition, what is the definition of genetic load. Then you have to explain. More the genetic load means the average fitness will decrease. When the average fitness decreases, then we can say that that is harmful to the population. That's why many biologists, they thought that the presence of genetic load is detrimental to the population. But later they realized that presence of some amount of genetic load is useful to the population. Then you have to write answer from two dimensions. One is survival of the population in case of sudden change of environment. Second one is self-thinning of population. From those two dimensions, you have to write answer and you have to conclude that yes, because of this, thus the genetic load appears to be, you have to write like this. Thus, we can say that it seems that the genetic load decreases the fitness of the population, but it is not so. You have to write like this. Okay. That is about genetic load. Then the next question is, the concept of racism is hollow. Discuss. Hollow means empty. The concept of racism is hollow. Discuss. Many students, they have given very good definition of race. Here also many students, they have given race, racism definitions. But it's better to give one simple answer which can be easily understood by the examiners. Here in the racism, two things are there. One is belief, second one is behavior based on that belief. That's why you have to write, racism is a belief among the people that some races are superior and some races are inferior by birth, and the resultant behavior on the basis of that belief. Racism is a belief that some races are superior and some races are inferior, and the behavior based on that belief. You have to write the definition like this. Then you have to write, because of the presence of the so-called superiority among the so-called superior races, they started perpetuating number of atrocities on the so-called inferior races. And they started perpetuating these atrocities on the basis of 4 bases. What are those 4 bases? They are superiority of color, superiority of blood, superior physical and mental capabilities, and superior culture. Then you have to write. You have to examine each and every base or each and every pillar of racism. Superiority of color. Many students, they have given different answers. You have to write the role of environment wherever it is required. After that, you have to write in all the things with respect to analysis of all the bases. You can write 3 points. There are intra-racial differences. Within the race, there are differences. Interracial similarities. Between two races also there are some similarities. And there is no correlation between the racial characteristics. That means, consider color. There is no correlation between color and other bases of the racism. If the racism is correct, all the people with white color, they must have A blood group. All the people with a black color must have B blood group. But it is not taking place. That means there is no correlation with other basis of the racism. These 3 points must be there in common in all the subheadings. That means whenever we are explaining the analysis of those bases, these 3 points must be there. And additional explanation if there is. And finally, you have to give the UNESCO's declaration on races. This is about the concept of racism and its hollowness. The next question is, explain the adjustments of humans to high altitude environment. This is a tricky question. People, that means students, have to understand very clearly. If you go to higher altitudes, many students committed this mistake. Why? Because many students, they went through PNAD textbook. But please remember, if you go to higher altitudes, there will be decrease in concentration of oxygen, decrease in partial pressure of oxygen. So to compensate it, in order to get sufficient amount of oxygen supply to the body, some changes take place. But if you go to higher altitudes, temperature also decreases. Am I correct or not? If you go to higher altitudes, temperature decreases. Am I correct or not? Ooty, Kodaikanal, Himalayas, and all those areas, temperature is less if you go to higher altitudes. Am I correct or not? That's why you have to write answers in two directions. One is from the point of view of compensating the decreased availability of oxygen in the environment. Second one is adjustment to the low temperature. And whenever we are adjusting to a particular environment, those adjustments can be divided like this: biological adjustments and cultural adjustments. Or you can write like this. Actually, biological can be divided into acclimatization and adaptations. You can write like this, but you can follow another pattern of explanation also. Acclimatization and acclimatization adjustments to hypoxic conditions. Hypoxic condition means presence of low oxygen. Adjustments to low temperature. Then adaptations. Adaptations are permanent changes. Then you have to write adaptations to hypoxic conditions, adaptations to low temperature conditions, then cultural adjustments. Cultural adjustments. Here, with respect to cultural adjustments, with respect to hypoxic conditions, there are no specific adjustments. Only with respect to low temperature conditions, there are specific adjustments. This is about adjustments to high altitude environment. Many students, they wrote about adjustments to hypoxic condition, but please remember, you have to write adjustments to low temperature conditions also. Now let us discuss the next question. Should cross cousin marriages be banned in India? Almost all the students have given good answer, but one student has given completely contradictory explanation. Yes, cross cousin marriages be banned in India. See, you have the conceptual knowledge, but the question is, should cross cousin marriages be banned in India? Banning is a policy decision. That's why to the policymakers we are going to give advice based on our knowledge. That's why here certain components have to be covered. The question is, should cross-cousin marriages be banned in India? Cross-cousin marriages be banned. Ban is the crucial word. After that, in India, that is another crucial word. Then you have to write like this. Why the question of banning cross-cousin marriages came into existence? Because of cross-cousin marriages, there are certain genetic defects. Nowadays, because of a very good awareness, many people, they developed this understanding that because of cross-cousin marriages, they are developing genetic defects. Why? You have to explain the genetic basis. You have to write what is meant by cross-cousin marriages. Then cross-cousin marriages can be comparable with inbreeding. Cross-cousin marriages are a form of inbreeding. In inbreeding, what happens? There will be increase in homozygosity, decrease in heterozygosity. Because of increase in homozygosity, the harmful genes, majority of the harmful genes are recessive in nature. They will be in heterozygous condition in our nature, but because of practice of inbreeding, they reach homozygous condition. Whenever they reach homozygous condition, they will be expressed. When they are expressed, then the fitness of the population will be decreased, and there will be many defective individuals in the population. That's why the frequency of genetic defects are more in the children born to cross-cousin marriages. That's why it seems logical to ban cross-cousin marriages. It seems, you have to write like this, but it seems logical to ban cross-cousin marriages. But if you analyze in detail, then our opinion may change. That means, but we have to analyze from all the dimensions. Then you have to write the underlying genetic basis. If you practice cross-cousin marriages for hundreds or thousands of years, all the disease causative genes which are there in heterozygous condition, they will be completely eliminated from the population. That's why the genetic fitness of the entire population will be increased. That is called inbreeding vigor. Then with the help of Tamil Brahmins and Marathi Brahmins, you can explain. With respect to the Ansari Muslims, because of practice of cross-cousin marriages, there is production of the children with genetic defects, and there is increased fetal mortality, infant mortality. But with respect to Marathi Brahmins and Tamil Brahmins who have been practicing cross-cousin marriages from thousands of years, they have reached the phase of inbreeding vigor. That's why there is no logic in banning cross-cousin marriages with respect to those communities. That too, in India, we have given certain cultural rights. If we ban cross-cousin marriages, it encroaches upon the fundamental rights of certain communities. That's why, even though it seems logical to ban cross-cousin marriages, in reality it is not so. Both on the basis of genetics as well as on the basis of their rights, which are granted by our constitution. You have to write like this. Don't write answers only from biological perspective. Sometimes you have to write like this also. The next question is, enumerate chromosome aberrations in humans and add a note on Down syndrome with a special emphasis on mechanism and clinical features. Here my question is very clear. Enumerate chromosome aberrations. Enumerate chromosome aberrations in humans. In humans, that is crucial. Generally, many physical anthropology textbooks are written by in our civil sciences field. Many physical anthropology textbooks are written by the zoologists. That's why you can come across that impression or that influence. Actually, the chromosomal aberrations can be divided into two varieties: numerical aberrations and structural aberrations. Numerical aberrations and structural aberrations. With respect to numerical aberrations, we have 2 into 23 chromosomes, that means 46. Okay. Now, if there is change in the number of sets of chromosomes, we have 23 chromosomes, like that 2 sets. One set is from mother, one set is from father. That's why it is called 2x, where x is equal to 23. If there is change in the number of sets of chromosomes, then that is called euploidy. Sometimes there will not be any change in the total number of sets, but there will be change in the number of chromosomes at any one location at the sex chromosomal position. Previously we have discussed the Turner syndrome, 44 plus X0 at one position. Down syndrome, 21 trisomy at 21 position, 3 chromosomes. Total number of chromosomes is 47. In human beings, there is no concept of euploidy. Some students, they have written euploidy also, but it is not required. But not only it is not required, but it is irrelevant also. You have to write directly like this. Numerical aberrations, they can be divided into two categories. They are autosomal aberrations and sex chromosomal aberrations. Mention some autosomal aberrations and some sex chromosomal aberrations. This chart must be there. You have to write chromosomal aberrations. The change in the number or structure of the chromosomes is called chromosomal aberration. The chromosomal aberrations in human beings can be divided into two varieties: numerical aberrations and structural aberrations. The numerical aberrations can again be divided into autosomal aberrations and sex chromosomal aberrations, and you have to give examples. Then the next question is, the next part in that question is, add a note on Down syndrome with a special emphasis on mechanism and clinical features. You have to write mechanism and clinical features. How Down syndrome is found? Because of non-disjunction of sex chromosomes during oogenesis, when the age of the female is more than 35. That's why this is autosomal aberration. That's why you need not represent 44 plus XX or 44 plus XY. You can represent total number of chromosomes. Now see, spermatogonium, oogonium, 46. This is autosomal aberration. That's why you need not to represent chromosomal number with the sex chromosomes. You can write the total number of chromosomes. Then you have to write like this: 23. Here you have to write 22 plus 23 plus 21st chromosome, because of non-disjunction. When there is fusion of this cell with this or this cell with this, 23 plus 23, 46 plus 21st chromosome. In the 46, 21st pair will be there, that means already 2, this is 1, 3, 21 trisomy. Similarly here also. This is normal mechanism. I have represented in 3 stages: primordial germ cells, formation of sex cells, and formation of zygote. This is one variety because of non-disjunction during oogenesis. The next variety is normal zygote formation will be there. Then you need not to represent. When normal zygote is formed, then we need not represent like this. Directly you have to represent like this. Normal sperm, normal ovum, 23 plus 23, 46. Then defective cleavage, 45 and 46 plus 21st chromosome. Defective cleavage. The division of the zygote is called cleavage whenever there is defective cleavage. Only in this circumstance in your syllabus you have to represent like this. In all the remaining cases you have to represent like this: primordial germ cells, that means oogonium or spermatogonia, after that the sex cells, after that the formation of zygote. Then you have to write about clinical features or characteristics. Many students have given characteristics very well, but please remember, whenever the question is asked on characteristics of Down syndrome, you must mention specifically the dermatoglyphical features. That means fingerprint patterns, presence of simian crease, presence of triradius at the center, large ATD angle, presence of radial loop on the 4th digit, like that you have to mention. If possible, draw the diagrams. Okay. Don't draw oversimplified diagrams. It is not difficult to draw the diagram of hand like this. One student represented like this. This is oversimplification. You have to draw like this. Okay. Then the last question is, what are communicable diseases? Suggest some measures for controlling communicable diseases. Nowadays we are facing the threat of corona, which is nothing but a communicable disease. That's why I have given one specific question. But this is a generalized term. One student has written the preventive measures only with respect to corona, but it should not be like that. First you have to write what are communicable diseases. Then you have to write the diseases which can be transmitted from one person to another person are called communicable diseases. Then you have to mention some communicable diseases. Some students, they have written in detail about communicable diseases, respiratory diseases, digestive system diseases, arthropod bone diseases, like that. They have given a number of diseases. Not necessary. Briefly explain. Then concentrate on measures to prevent communicable diseases. Some students, they have given the measures significantly 10 points, 15 points, like that. But for easily answering this question, you can represent like this. Write preventive measures on the base of systems. Automatically we will get more points. What are the measures to be taken to prevent the transmission of respiratory diseases? What are the measures to be taken to prevent the transmission of digestive system diseases like cholera, typhoid? What are the diseases which can be taken to prevent the transmission of mosquito-borne diseases? What are the measures that are to be taken to prevent the transmission of skin diseases or contagious diseases? The diseases which can be transmitted from one person to another person by touch are called contagious diseases. Contagious diseases are part and parcel of communicable diseases. The diseases which can be transmitted from one person to another person are called communicable. In communicable, contagious is just one variety. You need not write in the exam measures to prevent respiratory diseases, measures to prevent digestive system disease. Don't write. That principle must operate in your mind. Then if you write all those points, then you will get a very long list. Okay. This is about the explanation for test 1. I hope that all the students will incorporate these suggestions and the knowledge gained in this explanation in the next test. I wish you all the best for the second.